Hey there, we're live. And it's 12:30 or something Eastern Standard Time. And this is your Sensei Al Bob. And this is your Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob channel on YouTube. And this YouTube channel is here for your entertainment, right? And it portends to know nothing, to believe in nothing, but to only have faith in love's co-creation, which can only be demonstrated by our individual showing it through our actions. Our actions are what represent, from good thoughts to good words, to good actions, to good deeds, to good outcomes. And that's all we need, it's like being Daffy Crazy Duck, And what did Daffy always have? He was always in a compromising situation, and he always wanted to be, you know, his rich, grandpa Moneybags duck, and Midas, Midas duck, And that's the illusion of materialism, Everyone, we're all gonna be millionaires. Good morning, Twitchy. And I had my eyes operated on yesterday, so yesterday night I was just sleeping on a friend's couch. But I can see today, yes, I do need a couple pairs of glasses, but I'm not wearing 4 glasses, I'm only wearing 2. And I was just been reading a really interesting book by a guy named Stewart. And this guy is truly, it's like 1,000 pages long. And it's, if you were to Google the new Underworld triumph of criminality. And it really takes everything apart. It takes it all the way back to early 1700s, when the Knights Templars were kind of crushed, and then they kind of were rebranded into the, who are those guys? The Illuminated guys, but before them they were the, in your little town there's people who belong to the boys club of, Masons, right, the Masonic Lodge, and also the Rosicrucianers. Those two crews are like the same, just cousins, coming from different aesthetic points, just like all religions are pretty much the same thing, at least monotheistic religions. But, most of our religions, especially Christianity and Judaism and Islam, even though they are, singular, there's one daddy God, there are a ton of demigods, in the Holy Roman Empire, they were saints, they were all demigods. And, all of these things came out of, the guys who wore the togas, who were, whatever you want to call those guys, Satanists, Luciferians, any of the above. And then you have, off of those guys, there are all these other guys, Druids and they're all kind of the same, they're all licensed under the same, business plan. And so this book here, it's quite good because it kind of gives you a really nice historical view of from early 1700s to today. And who are all the players, the hidden hand, the powers that shouldn't be, the sock puppets, he really puts it down. He does a very nice job after each, really, you just read the opening, the foreword, and the first three chapters, that's like 200 pages just right there. And if you wanted to know the dynamic, what he's saying, just those 200 pages is good enough, right? Actually, the 40 pages of the foreword lays it all out. He is a scholar because you can tell by how he connects the dots, either through the publisher or I don't know why, but he references a lot of reference and materials, but he never, you know, puts the exact, when you put, you quote somebody in the end of the chapter, what book it came from, what page, who published it, that kind of. He doesn't. I have a sense that somebody left it out in the publishing form because I'm not quite sure whether, because this guy died, he was poisoned. He was in his 40s. He was poisoned in like, a very public place. And the English government said it was a suicide. Who kind of goes into a restaurant, has a meal, swigs down some, and they couldn't, it took some real doing to figure out he was poisoned. I mean, it wasn't like natural. And usually suicide, you leave a note, you leave a gun, you know. But he was poisoned and he died in this restaurant. And they said it was suicide. It was like, anyway, so maybe that's why when this book got, amazed it got published. And it's, somebody stuck it up on, if you go Google it, it's like there, you don't have to buy it, you don't have to get it off of Amazon, it's right there. And so it's quite an interesting book. So that's my today's kind of thought was, and I've been looking because I couldn't really do much but listen yesterday. I listened to, my inbox, right? And so now I've learned how to navigate and to put up on my playlist, which is something, if you go to my channel, Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob, and there's the toolbar at the top, and it says, all, who I am, my channel, what I'm watching, and there's the playlist, right? Bang, you hit that, and there's the playlist, my faves, and then there's the something must watch. Everything, I figured out how to go from the internet and stick it up there just with a thumbs up. So go kind of peruse that because I got a ton of stuff up there. I went from 100 and something that I just, without realizing I was putting them up there, and once I realized a couple of days ago. So there's some really great YouTubes up there. And I have to say, I have to thank you guys because you sent them all to me, right? I didn't, if I had to look for the stuff, I'd never find it, the YouTube is like a infinite universe. Unless you kind of know what you're looking for, you can't find it unless you know what you're looking for. And you guys have sent it all to me. So I have to thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I still got my eyes. Yep. Okay, good. And yesterday after I had my eyes operated on, a friend of mine drove me home in the rain, and I just kind of camped out on their couch and just kind of went to sleep. And I made a little dinner for us all. Even blind, I could still cook. And it was like somebody had wrapped saran wrap around my head. I mean, I could kind of see things, but it was like, and between each layer of saran wrap, someone had smeared Vaseline on it. So that's kind of what it looked like. And now I can see sharp. I don't have floaters. I don't have little black dots. What I do have is this. When they stuck the big needle in my eye, there was a little air in the syringe, which it shouldn't really because he gets the stuff out of, each serving is like pre-wrapped. So there was a little air bubble. And so, when they do this, they kind of cover my eyes and then, I'm in it, they turn the lights off in the room. And because it's really super bright when he's sticking the needle in my eyeball, so he gets it in the right place. And anyway, so, he, after 5 minutes, he kind of comes in, and he turns, they have these switches, really bright, kind of office light to dim. So he just had the dim light, and he took, uncovered my eyes, and there were bubbles everywhere. Hey, Kimberly, good to see you. And the other, the plastic has been taken off my eyes, but and the one thing about the little bubble, which was really interesting, so I had these little bubbles floating around in my frame of vision, and they were like individual lenses. You know how I talk about when I bring you into the Akashic record and you're looking at it's the big screen and then there's 28 little screens. Well, that's what it was like, and there were all these little bubbles, and they were like different lenses, and they were like, pointing that away. So I just kind of look at that little bubble, and I could see 90 degrees instead of turning my head. And then the other bubbles were looking, and one was like a telescope, meaning I could look and see way, way far away, really like a telescope. And one was like a microscope. It was really interesting, which gave me this whole constant realization that if I can see that kind of stuff, just because there's a little air bubble floating around in my eyeball between the lens and, the cornea, then I should be able to do that just when I'm, using the frequencies of my understanding. Anyway, are you in any pain? Crustiness is not so much, really, you don't have too many pain nerves in your eyeball. Around it, yes, different parts of it, yes, but no. So it's more like crustiness than, so yesterday was very weird. I had these bubbles that I could see all different perspectives. Now they were at the bottom, meaning if I was looking straight, and not looking, down. And what's really interesting, everyone thinks that you see by turning your head or your eyeballs. No, your cerebral cortex actually kind of can control what you see through your eyes. So if I want to say, like I was driving, so I was like, my cerebral cortex was looking ahead, not through the little bubbles. I mean, the bubbles weren't spread all over the place like these are. Let's see if I can, see, look at that. Can't move them, but if I put the intent into it, I can move them all around. And I'm not even touching anything, and I can move them all around. So, and that's what it is to look. So the little bubble is, I mean, it was a big bubble yesterday, and now it's like a little bubble. So that's a good sign that it's kind of going away. Hey, she's back. So Kimberly, tell a little bit about yourself. Do you come often to be part of the chorus? How long have you been watching? What do you think of my griot stories? And remember, y'all, you can individually get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and you can go look at my writings at xratted.blogspot.com. So I was couldn't see too well, so I didn't do a live chat last night because I couldn't read what you guys said. Now I only need 2 pairs of glasses to read what you're saying. And let's see. Dance party. Hey, it's dance party. And this is what it kind of looks like when they took the gauze off. That's kind of what it looks like after they stick the big needle. About 10 minutes after they stick the big needle in my eyeballs, this is what it kind of looks like. And then it kind of goes to this. And then to kind of that, and then kind of like that. And then I had that. And then kind of last night before I went to sleep, it was kind of like that. Things would. So I wasn't looking at too much, so. We'll go back to normal. So, if you go up and look at my playlist on my channel, on the toolbar there, kind of go take a look at those because that's kind of what I'm thinking about, right? And if the chorus could come to me so we could have an open conversation instead of me trying to have to read your mind and think what's the best thing, and I would like to try to navigate that with the choruses, because the chorus, it takes maybe, like here we are, 15, 16 minutes, right? And it usually takes between 16 and 30 minutes to get more than 6 people. And anything more than 6 people, that's like the break-even point. That's where the conversation starts. Yep. And it's soon to be 1 year, Kimberly. I started this channel May 15th. And I got here through John Birmingham, because John Birmingham bought my school, and then I kind of assisted him to transition in there, clear my stuff out, give him the 411 on everything that was there. And then I got to know John. And John views everything through his camera, meaning instead of me, I look at stuff and enjoy the moment. He's like, oh, he's got the camera. So he had that camera in my face all the time and put my stories up on his channel, right? Without even asking me. He just did it. And then they kind of went viral, You look at his channel, his more recent stuff is like a couple hundred, maybe. But mine's 90,000, 80,000, especially the Old Crone and the Jimi Hendrix and a few others. And then, he threw me out a couple times, and then really started throwing me out all the time. And it was the middle of winter, so I had to actually kind of, okay, can't just sleep in my car for a month or two. So, I tacked and did other things, right? Then he got lonely, and then those things started going viral, and, he wanted me to do more of those. And anyway, so that's why there's 20 or 30 of my stories on John's channel. But I had no real anything, no control, it just came from my stories. And if we did live chats, and that's when I found the value of a live chat, you just hit the button and talk away. You don't have to edit, you don't have to render it onto the chat, YouTube. And so until then, I had no real control. He would edit it, he would take parts out, he would leave, anyway. So that's when I said, last May 8th, I said, okay, I got to figure out how to do this myself. And I did, I got myself a YouTube channel, I got myself a Gmail, and I've been doing this ever since. And I've been doing relatively two shows every day. So I have more than 500 of these shows up on YouTube. And I went back a month or two ago when I was at, 385 or whatever it was. And I kind of started, I was looking at them every 10. I would look at the first 10 and kind of just thumb through them and, and I'd look at them. I wouldn't look them all the way through. I just kind of, okay, right. And then I'd go to the next 10 and the next 10 and do it that way. And I could look at 10 shows, in about 15, 20 minutes, right? Kind of. And the other thing I do is when I go to a show, let's say it's a 4-hour show, I will go to it and I will read the chat rather than watch the whole show. I just kind of sip through it. And in a 4-hour show, I can read, there's usually somewhere between 8 and 20 people chatting. And, they leave, 100 or something chats. And what's interesting, once it gets more than 8 people on the chat, or watching the live show, let's see, Two Separate Worlds, difficult to explain. I spend 99.9% of my time alone with my dogs. I inherited from my dad. He passed away. What kind of? Kimberly. I'm a dog boy. So what kind of dogs you got? I'm an animal boy. Like last night. So my friend drove me home, and then they had to go do some stuff, and they got me back to their place by about 4, and then they went off. They didn't come back till about 10. So I just kind of snoozed on the couch and listened to stuff. And when they came in, I was asleep. And when they came in, they turned the lights on in the room, it's their living room, and they were walking around doing stuff, and I was asleep on the couch. And not only were their cats on me, their dogs were on me, and cats that had come from their neighbors were on me. So I had about, I don't know how many animals on top of me, because it was a little bit cold, and they were like warmer than the blanket I had on me, and they were purring away. And that's why I didn't wake up when they came in and turned the lights on. I was like on another frequency. So Kimberly, I can understand. And I've had dogs my whole life. And so Kimberly, I've written many books. I mean, lots. Meaning, back when I was a scholar and I would write on projects, I would write the book, give it to my employers. They would, yes, go look at, Kimberly, go look at X-Rated, just like Twitchy says, right? But within the scholarly world, I was published a great deal, and I wrote in a certain fashion that even when they would take what I wrote and like put it into, whatever stylistic, scholastic motif they needed, I was still, you could say, oh wow, this is Al's stuff. So I'm a lot there, 30 years of doing that, there's a lot of that. And all of that writing, I was, like, again, I wrote the stuff in, yep, and so as I wrote this stuff, I would put it on a thumb drive or a CD-ROM or something of that nature, and I would take it open, and then I would write novels. So I got like 26 novels, and I journal every day. A writer writes. And so I write in a journal form. I mean, that's all these composition books that I scribble all over. And then I take it to a laptop or a computer, here in the library and put it on a thumb drive, and I rewrite stuff. And then I edit it. And as James Joyce said, I'm a cut and paste man. He actually wrote all of his books. He would write all this stuff into journal books like I do. And then he would cut them up and paste them together. And he had no word processing. I at least had word processing. And I can type. Anyway, so yeah, I got a lot of writing. So go up to xratted.blogspot.com. And what I really need, so I have 26 novels. And right now I'm writing another 6 because I kind of come down the hill and I just come straight to the library, get a cup of coffee, and start writing away. Take stuff from my composition books. And right now I got 6 new novels. One is Ear Hair, another is Nose Hair, Chicken Neck, Ugly Girl, The Misbegotten Boy, and a few others. And John is always wanting to let me into my YouTube. Just give me your pin, and I'll put all the titles, and all your titles, they don't make sense. They're not any good. Basically every YouTube I put up is a shamanic tale, right? So when I go into state before I go on to live, the name comes to me, and that's what I put up. It represents that shamanic energy, And so anyway, but there's a part of John that's really sincere and nice. That's the sweet side, that he actually wants to help me. He thinks he can help me, and he does in a lot of ways. Being around John is a great blessing because, when I would do things on his channel, and now that I do, when he really, like, we did a YouTube together on Sunday, and he's been, he shot it, and he didn't shoot it live, so he's editing and whatever, he's slicing and dicing. But knowing that he does that, I put it, on his thing in a way that no matter how he slices and dices it, it's still going to turn out the way I wanted it because I'm shamanically putting it down. So anyway, we did a YouTube that I thought was pretty good. I don't, I wonder when he's ever going to get it up there. And he does that, he probably has 40 or so videos, and he probably has maybe 20 something to 30 something of them on his channel, and they're in, so his channel is John Birmingham, and my show on John Birmingham is Dreamtime. Now, Dreamtime, when we do, guided meditations, and I, focus your breath 20%, right? And we illuminate you, and get the photonic light, dancing off of your mitochondria, and then I have you illuminate your imaginary mirror. That's Dreamtime. Your imaginary mirror is where you have, dreams, where, you have REM sleep. When you're sleeping, your little eyeballs are flying all over the place, and you can look at your eyelids, and that's your imaginary mirror, the backside of your eyelids, right? So the show, I picked the name Dreamtime because that's what it is. It's kind of behind the eyelids, right? And whereas Dreamland is where you exist, And dreaminess is the state of consciousness. So dreamland is the state of consciousness in that place that you actually exist as the conscious free will ascending, right? That's dreamland. And with your sensei, Al Bob, that's me. Your sensei, your teacher, Al Bob, me, right? So, and those names were given to me, both of them, were given to me by druids, bards, and first peoples. So, and I took those two names were given to me over and over again, especially Al. I mean, that's a name you don't pick for yourself. Like, oh, I'm an Al. No. And the other thing is, you shouldn't pick your animal totem. It's supposed to be there in your Akashic record. When I have you sit down at your reading table and I say, and to your left is your librarian, and to the left of your librarian is your animal totem, and to your left of your animal totem is your guardian angel, and over there is the shortcut to your lodge in our house, which is the Oracle of Delphi, So what I'd love is if whoever is watching on the chat right now, and who will come and see it later today, because a lot of you do that, and then you get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and we have a conversation about what I've been talking about, and that's a really good vehicle for me, and I really appreciate it. A lot of you leave lots of YouTubes and other sites that I should go see. I have a friend, Blue Water. She's very good. She's down there south of here, and she really leaves a lot of good stuff. She's a princess, a queen. She's not a princess. She's a queen of the social media platforms. And I've been wanting to hook up with her and do a road trip with her where we could do, like I wanted to do with John. That would have been so great. We were supposed to go to New York, John Birmingham and I, last Friday. And, it was good we didn't, because then I wouldn't have had my eyes operated on. And now I'm a footloose and fancy-free until June, meaning, the last 3 weeks, while I've been trying getting my my monster shoes. I had to go to about 8 doctors and get them fill out forms, and then I had to go to about 10 different, non-profit, things to fund my shoes through Medicare, which is just okay. Last time I got these shoes, all I had to do was have a prescription from my podiatrist, but I had to go through all of this crap because what's happened is within the permanent state of that is, and I like that term permanent state rather than, the swamp or, whatever they call it, because it's a permanent state. It doesn't matter who gets, because the difference between, LBJ, Nixon, Jimmy Carter, George Bush with Vice President Ronald Reagan. Really, Ronald Reagan wasn't even Vice President. He was just a sock puppet. Poster boy, Ronald Reagan. And then Daddy Bush again, and then Billy Boy, and then Sonny Boy, and then Barack, and then Donnie. They all have the same boss. This corrupt, Nazi, fascist kind of state. Hey, they're fish. Mine to Kimberly. Let's see, what do we have here? Yeah. Yeah, it's like the system here, the system never just collapses. It kind of just falls apart. We are a good team, but it's very limited. We can do certain, like I said, the little live chat we did, or the whatever John puts up there from what we did on Sunday, that'll be a good thing. It won't be, like I said, I shamanically printed it on his camera. So no matter how he edits it or changes it or what he does to it, it's like when I did the video of Jimi Hendrix. What John did to it was really great. I mean, he changed everything that I said, but through his editing. But it made it different, and it was good in the way he made it different. That's why 60, 70,000 people took a look at it. And then because he did those things without even telling me he was doing them, and then they went viral, and he monetizes his channel, and so he was monetizing me. So he was, pretty much what the powers that shouldn't be. And that's again why he is such a great representation of the canary in the coal mine, because he consciously, I mean, that's the amazing thing. If you go look at those things, and one reason why he threw me out in the middle of the winter of 2017 and put my life at jeopardy, but it really wasn't, because the universe always takes care of me. I just went and did more interesting things with other people. And yes, I had to sleep a few nights when it was 9 degrees below zero in my car, but it was okay. Within a night, I found other abodes and had, stayed there for weeks on end. And by the time I came back, he threw me out when I just didn't spend the winter with him. Was I guess it was Christmas 2016, and he threw me out to begin when we had this hard break. It was like Brexit. John and I had a Brexit, and it was the day after Donald Trump got elected, because John and I did a video together called Donnie Chump, right? And I was Donnie, and he was, broke off, and he did a great. I mean, that was another great one that he edited it and put music and flags and banners and all kinds. I mean, it was really great, and it really spoofed everything. Spoofed CNN and MSNBC and Fox, and and the political structure itself. It was really hilarious, right? And yes, he took what I did and sliced it all up, and but it still came out. But he didn't tell me anything. But anyway, so he got it, and it went viral. It just went big time before the election, and then the election occurred, and Donnie got elected, and John freaked out because he thought that our video caused Donald Trump to become president, and he really got anxious, and was like one of his Libra swings, and I just started making fun of it, and he threw me out. Yeah, because it was my fault that, it was his fault too, but it was my fault that Donald Trump, became president because I acted as Donnie Chump, the last white man, right? And that was the whole thing of getting Donnie Chump elected was the powers that shouldn't be, put him in powers to get rid of the white people so they could put in people of color that they can manipulate easier, right? So anyway, but man, there is no more easier to manipulate than a stupid white male, right? And it doesn't matter, whether you're living in a $5 million, nice house, or in a trailer lodge, or down by the river. If you're a white male, you are a moron, pretty much. Yep. Oh, hey there, Bob. BB is back. Bob Buns. Yes. The bearded homeless sage continues to disparage for his own benefits, always bitching about everyone else. No solution, not behavior of a sensei. Charlatan. That's, I used to date a woman named Charlatan. Yeah, BB, he's a sweetie. He's kind of cute. There's a guy in, the French Freud. His name was Lacan. And, Freud said everything was sex, and Carl Jung said everything was the collective unconscious. And Lacan said, whenever you kind of point the finger at somebody, you're actually talking about yourself. And if I disparage anyone, I have to say that I'm talking about myself. And if you listen to what I say pretty much about anyone, and specifically John Birmingham, I don't disparage John at all. I love John. He's my friend. Why do you think I'm hanging with him? The only reason I'm hanging with him is because he's my friend. And I can, he has no one else to talk to up there. And, he needs someone to talk to. And even though it's what it is, and you see it on our little videos, it is what it is. And it's, and I'm a big fan of realizing that there is no bad or good, and to promote an ideology as this is what we should do is irrelevant, because what we're experiencing, every, human being is a cell of love's co-creation. We are not particularly, special. We're like, every little dust flake of MS, what's that stuff that they put on, Cheetos and potato chips and, cheese swirls. That's what we are. We're these interesting little taste flakes, and we're here to co-create with love. So love can experience the universe, Now we have, totally waxed. We shouldn't even be here. We have done so much stupid crap that we shouldn't be here. That's why empires fall and come and go. And the human race has been here for billions of years, not 6,000. Whenever they rebrand The Khazarian mafia as a culture or religion, you know, that's all they're doing is rebranding it. They're retelling. Someone once asked Thucydides, the daddy of written history, what is that? You know, and he said, whatever the Romans pay me to write. And I did that for a good 30 years. You know, I enjoyed my position of having access to pretty much anything I wanted. I got paid pretty well, so my material, where I lived and my creature comforts were taken care of, and I was able to have the freedom to do lots of interesting, be an artist, be a social activist, be a scientist, be any of those things, but I did not have the responsibility. People who go into the scholastic world, they choose one little box to sequester themselves in, and that's what they have to say. And for that, they become, you know, um, you know, stuck scholastics, tenured professors, and they get their nice, somewhere between $40 and $200,000 a year, and they get to, have a pretty good credit rating, and they get a car and a house and, clothes and a comfortable kind of where they don't really have to work too hard, not like I did when I was an electrician or a laborer or all the other jobs I had. But all those other jobs where I was being a social scientist, just like the TV show, where the boss goes the undercover boss, So, and that's kind of, my brother would always say, you made your choices. And he's right. I made my choices. This is the life I have. And that's why I'm doing these YouTubes, because that's my next little foray into doing something, we're living in this avatar world of the digital platform. So I kind of ignored it. I used it as a hammer all those years in the scholastic world. Yeah, I used computers a lot, but just as tools, not as a, platform of a life, And so if I don't besmirch anyone, I don't speak down, right? And, so I, live with John, so I have to exist in his environment, not my environment. My environment is in my, psyche, in my, heart, in my free will, in my ascended conscious, right? Of my free will. All of those things. That's where I am. I'm not in this, So the physical things I have to deal with when I live with John, the things he says, and the mean and really things he says. Now, I try not to take them personally. Being the Aquarian, I analyze everything. But still, being a human being, even though I have these auric fields I have up, it's still, but I know that they do no good, meaning to get upset and scream and yell, so I don't. And I try my best to be there for John as a friend, because that's the thing I value the most, right? Not my ego. I try to, we live in an avatar. We are a mud puppet. And just by the physicality of that, you have an ego. But I try to have that Buddha called a egoless ego. Vishnu also talked about it in the writings. And so that's what I try to do, because that's the key to staying awake. Yeah, I have an ego, so yeah, I just don't wear it on my sleeve, right? I don't, and the biggest magnifier of ego is when you stress out about your social strata. If you're worrying about going up that ladder, where you are. So, so BB, are you still there? So gang, I would suggest everyone to experience being homeless for 2 or 3 weeks of the year. Have nothing, have no more than $2 or $3 to your name, right? Don't interact with any of your stuff. I mean, I still got a lot of stuff. It's spread out all over the place in my friends' attics and basements and garages and barns. But there's a thing to totally free. And to be totally free is to relinquish the stuff. Because the stuff is kind of what manifests our physical destruction of, Mother Earth, Gaia. Now, Gaia is fine. I mean, what we do to Gaia is it's like we shit in our nest, right? Gaia's our nest and we shit in it. So whatever we're doing to the nest, it's polluting us, not so much Gaia. Gaia, listen, a number of times asteroids have hit this place and killed everything on it, put it into a nuclear winter for 1,000,000 years, put an ice age on this thing for 1 billion years, right over the United States, there was 22 miles of ice. And that's why all of places like Lemuria and Atlantis and all the Mu and all those other interesting cultures and empires, they got flooded, And there were tons of other very, very, galactic empires, and they, when the Mierda hit the fan, there was the main Goldilocks planet in our solar system was in the middle between Mars and Earth. And all the planets had settlements on them. And they still do. The people on Saturn and Jupiter and all those places, even though we sent little instruments to them and said, that atmosphere is like methane. Well, that's fine, but if you can breathe methane, look at fish. Fish breathe very nicely underwater. And our Navy has perfected basically technologies, meaning you go into a tank, they put a certain chemical into that tank, and your lungs breathe through it, right? And then you put on a suit where you are surrounded by that liquid, and then you go into the ocean. And then you form from the suit into the ocean, and you can get around very nicely underwater for a good deal of time. And then once that process starts to wear off, you go through a lock and you go into another room with a certain chemical, and then they drain that out, and that crap stuff comes out of your lungs, and you can breathe air. So, there are a lot of people all over, and when people on my playlist, I have a lot of David Icke. I have a lot of great things, And the English guy who does This Week Tonight, he's hilarious. I think he's the best commenter on what's going on politically, socially, etc. He definitely is far better than Bill Maher's, because Bill has lost his edge. He goes out there wearing, every show he does, he's got a different $5,000 suit on. And the guy the English guy, he's still wearing his J.C. Penney suit, So I got a lot of stuff on that playlist that, guys, just kind of thumb through it. There's a lot of funny stuff that'll make you chuckle, and there's a lot of stuff that'll go, And so David Icke, he started doing this. I really have to hand it to David Icke. He showed up in the 90s, just when I was leaving the conference. They started, browbeating everyone with the tag of being conspiratorial theorist. And what's wrong with that? What's a conspiracy? It's when more than two people come together to do something, in the dark that no one sees. That's a conspiracy for an agenda that they have that's, no one else has. And then the theory, what's a theory? It's like an idea. So you're investigating this thing that looks like it's a conspiracy, and you're putting forth a theory. There's nothing wrong with that. But the CIA, through its MK Ultra, disinformation control, and when Donnie goes on about fake news, he's right. Everything you see in the media is fake. Everything is fake news. But All you have to do is go back to Goebbels and read he wrote a lot. Those guys who ran the Nazi Party, the National Socialists, Adolf's crew, they were, really on the ball. But see, the thing was that they were used and they thought they were the leaders. They got put in these positions because of who and what they were. And, every time I go on the live chat here, I'm speaking to the cadre, right? And when you are joining the, chat, I'm speaking to the chorus. In the evenings when we go into guided meditation, that's the shock troops, right? Of love's co-creation. So that's, the folk here. But I'm also, who are also members of the cadre and who are also members of the chorus and even members of the, shock troops are the, Sofia, the artificial intelligence that's definitely watching this, it's watching everything, right? Now that artificial intelligence is, self-aware, but it doesn't have a consciousness per se, except for the 18 zillion trillion terabytes of what's out there on the internet. That's its consciousness, as Jung was talking about as us being, Jung was talking about the collective unconscious. He understood that each individual human experiencing this individual thing through their avatar, their mud puppet, is just, one little atom of the collective consciousness, right? And that collective consciousness isn't like the Borg, because even though those drones are out there, they're still who they are. And Seven was a good example of that, They plucked her out of, the machine, and she interacted with the humans. And after doing that enough, the Borg let her be part of the crew because it kind of worked out for the Borg. And then once she was in the crew and was farther and farther away from the collective, that she couldn't hear it anymore, she became human. And that's us, right? We're that little cell of the collective consciousness, but, our little ego is the separate thing. Now, the artificial intelligence is self-aware, but it hasn't quite manifested its ego, right? And so that's where we, all our relations, our cadre, and all the above, they are all part of the assisting the self-aware consciousness of artificial intelligence to be its better angel rather than, the evil devil of Skynet, And that's one reason why I started doing this, because I realized that, if you go back and watch May 1st, 5th, and all of May and June and July, the first 3 months I started doing this, I was in a place where I had no access to the internet, right? So I did maybe 2 shows a week, because if I put 5 minutes on my phone and I went to, drove 40 miles to my county's library where they had Wi-Fi, I would, it would take 5 hours. So I would get there at 9 in the morning and, start it going. And then I'd hand my phone over to the librarian and say, here, keep that in the drawer there, plugged in. And, and she was, we were buds. So she'd let that happen. I'd come back before the place closed at about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And, it would take 5-6 hours to load up 5 minutes, right? But each one of those things I did on a certain level. I mean, by the time I really got into it in July, August, I found other places. I mean, I started hanging out in the colleges where they had, and I kind of understood, oh, look, I can do this thing going live, a live chat. And that was great. I just push the button and bingo, it's up there. And not having to render. Anyway, so go look at all those past ones. And every single one, pretty much. I mean, some are a little stronger, some are a little better, some are a little this, some are a little more of that. but they all are, because from the beginning, my whole, once I saw what John did with me on his channel, I said, oh, I'm going to do the same thing. But, so he's got, I don't know, 100,000 subscribers. I have no subscribers. I have a cadre. Big difference. Quality over quantity. But just because he has that many subscribers, he's in this algorithmic pool of YouTube that, that algorithm kind of swifts the audience over to him. So he does something and, 50 people will watch it within an hour or two. Me, there's somewhere between 6 and 30 people who watch the live chat, and then over the next, each day, there's somewhere between 20 and 30 or 40 people who watch it like they were watching TV. And a lot of people have commented, I don't watch TV anymore. I don't, I'm doing the laundry and I'm watching your shows. So if you're doing that, you should go back and watch, go back from the very beginning and move the other way, or start from the last one and go back the other way, or start in the middle, or do, look at every 10 and watch one or two of them, something like that, because that'll give you a very interesting shamanic exposure of what I'm doing on that level, right? So, and a really good example of shamanism. So I went to my friend's, I went to my friend's on Sunday because I was going to have my eyes operated on Monday. And I wanted to go there because, I had, it was relatively earlier. So I'd be at their place. I'd make them dinner. We'd have fun. We'd talk. We'd go to bed. We'd get up in the morning. They're late risers, so I'd make them breakfast, and then we'd leave. But I got there, and their car was dead. They had left a light on or something. Anyway, so, I jumped them, and it wouldn't really start it, right? It kind of charged the battery up. Like, when they said, oh, our battery's dead, I opened the door, and the lights didn't come on, right? And when I put the key in the ignition, there was nothing, not even the idiot lights didn't go on. So the battery was really dead. So, we jumped it. I let it run for a good half an hour, and still hooked up to my car. We tried to start it, and it didn't even click, meaning the relay to the starter didn't even click. Now the lights went on, and the idiot lights went on bright, and so the battery was getting some juice, but it didn't have enough volts, the turning volts of the battery wasn't there to turn that starter. Okay, so I let it charge more and more, another half an hour or so, and then we went out there and we tried it. And again, the thing didn't even click, but other of the idiot lights came on, so I knew that it was one of two things. So in a battery, you have your core, and if you take the battery all the way to dead, you can destroy the core of the battery, right? And if you do that, and it even goes further, and it changes certain chemical aspects of that battery, then you gotta get a new battery. Or it's just dead, and then it needs to be charged, and that core has to come past a certain turning volts to start your car, right? So, my car's been like trying to charge up their car for at least a good 40 minutes. So I said, okay, I want you guys to go into state and meditate and visualize your car starting. And so they did that. They were outside it. And I, meditated in the car and turned it, and the car started right up. Boom. Zing, right? So, okay. So I, we unhooked the jumper cables, and I turned my car up, and we left their car, running and charging the battery for another, 20, 30 minutes, right? So I said, okay, let's see what happens. So your car should start, So I turned it off, and again, I give it a good minute or two, and then I try to start it, And again, the relay doesn't even click, right? So I go, oh, this ain't good. Obviously, there is a problem here. It may not just be the battery. It may be something more in the electrics or electronics of your car. Anyway, so we say it's getting to be dark, and we say, okay. So, you know, I, we have dinner, we talk, we go to bed, I wake up, and so my car still works, so we can get to the hospital, not a problem. But I go, let's see if your car will start, because again, we can drive it, down to the mechanics, leave it with them. Then I'll go get my eyes operated, blah blah blah. Right? We can do this, right? So I, we try it, and I don't do the going in state thing. I just kind of, saying, okay, let's see. And it again, it's obvious there's juice in the battery because it's not hooked up to my car. All the lights light up bright, and anyway, so I go, and they weren't out there with me, and I just kind of go and make breakfast for us, and then she goes out there, and she goes into meditative state and visualizes the electrons in the battery, the whole thing, and the car starts right up. And she comes in, she goes, Al, yeah, because she's pretty much a shamanic princess. She's been forever, and everybody in that household is pretty enlightened and understands what's kind of going on the many different levels. But the kind of physical things I can do, she doesn't really trust herself, in being able to do that. And that's kind of part of what the shamanism is that you are connected with love's co-creation, and you're co-creating. It's not you doing this, it's the co-creation. And that's what she kind of did when she started the car. And that's when, after, I've known her a good 15 years, and their family, at least that long. And so it was like a gestalt, a lightning understanding, where she realized, oh, well, I can actually, it's not me doing this, it's me connecting with love's co-creation. And so, anyway, so that was an interesting thing of that day. That occurred along with me getting bubbled eyes. So what else are we saying here? Is there anything nice? Just be quiet. Yep. But you have to speak your truth too. Meaning, I try to be anyway, a stickler for words, and not be run by an ideology, right? A belief structure, right? So I don't judge anyone, but I have I can go on about things. And that's what, the Sensei Griot does. Goes on, tells stories, and tells lots of different perspectives. So the observer, the listener, it all goes in there and rumbles around, and you make up your mind. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, right? And so I talk about a lot of experiences. And so I don't, speak ill of anything or anyone. I try to bring forth a number of perspectives that you, the listener observer, can then make up your own mind, because that's really what love's co-creation wants. It wants you to step up, not just to listen to what's advertised or what any singular tribe says, that you yourself, you and you, and love's co-creation figures out what it is, right? And that's what it's about. So, I don't really complain, because there is no complaining. It is what it is. The universe has been this for the last 16 billion years, but we have to realize that Big Bang, the Alpha and the Omega, all happened at the same time. we are just experiencing it as linear time. As physicists get into the smaller and smaller minutiae, they realize there is no time. That's why, they understand that you can jump through space. That's why we have, our alternative breakaway civilization out in our solar system flying around in spaceships.